With all the devastating fires we've had in Oregon and all over the West Coast, we have to talk about gardening and fire safety. Fire-resistant landscaping. When landscaping around a home, most homeowners are interested in creating a landscape that is aesthetically pleasing, complements their home, and has variations in color, texture, flowers, and foliage. When selecting plants, you also should consider the flammability of plants. Careful thought needs to go into your back and front yards. A fire-resistant landscape isn't necessarily the same thing as a well-maintained yard. This type of landscape uses fire-resistant plants that are strategically planted to resist the spread of fire. Choosing fire-resistant plants and materials. This includes using stone walls, patios, decks, and roadways. Wood decks in the backyard have a bad reputation for fueling wildfires and bringing them right to your home's doorstep. When possible, use composites, which will spread fire less quickly, or make sure the wood is treated with fire-resistant coating. While gardening, try your best to keep dead and highly flammable vegetation at bay so they don't fuel the flames. Use rock, mulch, flower beds, and gardens as ground cover for bare spaces and as effective fire breaks. In the experiment conducted by home safety experts, homes lined in mulch fared much worse in the face of a wildfire compared to a fire-resistant home lined with rocks. The fire-resistant home keeps plants at least 5 feet away from the home instead of hugging the home's exterior. The researchers called this outdoor space a non-combustible zone. There are no fireproof plants, but select high moisture plants that grow close to the ground and have low sap or resin content. Choose fire retardant plant species that resist ignition, such as rock rose, ice plant, and aloe. Plants that are fire resistant have the following characteristics. Leaves are moist and supple. Plants have little dead wood and tend not to accumulate dry, dead material within the plant. Sap is water-like and does not have a strong odor. Sap or resin materials are low. Most deciduous trees and shrubs are fire-resistant. In contrast, plants that are highly flammable generally have several of these characteristics. They contain fine, dry, or dead material within the plant, such as twigs. Sap is gummy, resinous, and has a strong odor. They may have a loose or papery bark. Both native and ornamental plants can be highly flammable. An example of a highly flammable shrub often planted in home landscapes is spreading or upright juniper. Avoid landscaping with highly flammable plants directly around your home. Leaves, twigs, and stems contain volatile waxes, terpenes, or oils. Creating a fire safety zone in your garden. Fire safety zone. Even the best designed, best maintained landscape is no match for a wildfire whipped by 60-mile-an-hour winds. But it's clear that how we design and maintain a client's property can make the difference between a mere close call and a total disaster. While we can't absolutely stop a raging inferno from damaging a client's home, we can at least make things less fire-friendly, and maybe even buy enough time for firefighter to gain the upper hand. Fire Safety Zone 1. Zone 1, next to the house, lean, clean, and green. The first 30 feet from the home should not have fire-prone vegetation. No accumulation of dead vegetation or flammable debris. Zone 1, next to the house, lean, clean, and green. The first 5 feet from the home is a non-combustible area. This is gravel, rock mulch, or brick. Vegetation must be maintained at a low density. Vegetation should also be green and sufficiently watered during the fire season. Fire Safety Zone 2. Zone 2 is 30 feet to 100 feet from the home, structures, and decks. Cut or mow annual grass down to a maximum height of 4 inches. Create horizontal space between shrubs and trees. Create vertical space between grass, shrubs, and trees. Remove fallen leaves, needles, twigs, bark, cones, and small branches. The spacing between grass, shrubs, and trees is crucial to reduce the spread of wildfires. The spacing needed is determined by the type and size of brush and trees, as well as the slope of the land. For example, a property on a steep slope with larger vegetation requires greater spacing between trees and shrubs than a level property that has small, sparse vegetation. Vertical spacing. Remove all tree branches at least 6 feet from the house. Allow extra vertical space between shrubs and trees. Lack of vertical space can allow a fire to move from the ground to the brush to the treetops like a ladder. Horizontal spacing. Horizontal spacing depends on the slope of the land and the height of the shrubs or the trees. The Fire Safety Sprinkler Study. A University of Minnesota study looked at the aftermath of the state's 2007 Ham Lake wildfire. In 1999, following the blowdown that instantly created thousands of acres of downed trees and the resultant fire potential, FEMA provided grants for the installation of sprinkler systems at private residences. Ham Lake area homeowners who took advantage of those grants had much better outcomes a few years later. With no defensible space, with a sprinkler, 22 survived, 0 burned. No defensible space, no sprinkler, 7 survived, 16 burned. Defensible space with a sprinkler, 5 survived, 0 burned. Defensible space with no sprinkler, 1 survived, 0 burned. Sprinkler systems appeared to protect structures along with their surrounding vegetation, regardless of fire behavior, intensity, fuels, weather, wind, or fire-wise status of the property. On Seagull Lake, system present. There is some debate about the reason for success. The wildfire sprinkler systems on the trail were generally believed to have worked by creating a humid microclimate and by cooling ambient air temperature. Firefighters reported that some sprinkler systems ran for as little as 2 hours before the fire arrived. Prior to that experience, it was thought that systems would need to run many hours longer to fully hydrate fuels. This was not the case with the Ham Lake fire. Experience was that with the cooler, moister environment created by the sprinklers, embers were suppressed before they were able to ignite the fuels, whether structures or vegetation. Following the Ham Lake fires, it was determined that 72% of the structures that had survived had working sprinkler systems. Among those structures that didn't, only 1 was irrigated. The report from the study noted that, when properly installed and maintained, sprinkler systems can be extremely effective in protecting not only the built structure, but also the trees and vegetation within the sprinkler area.
Less evaporation. Huh?